What is up, guys? Welcome back to OverTakes. This is Misfit. Today, we're going to be talking about a bunch of free agent news that happened over the last week or so. First, I want to thank everybody out there for joining me. Everybody on YouTube, thank you very much for all of your support lately. It's been greatly appreciated. All the subscriptions, likes, and all that kind of thing. Thank you very much. If you're new to the program, thanks for stopping by. I talk Overwatch League right now in the off-season, once a week, twice a week, depending on what happens. And during the season, I do a lot more, probably 3 to 5 times a week. Please hit the subscribe button, like button, and the alerts. That way you'll know when I'm doing content, when I'm dropping it, when we're talking about the off-season stuff, and then into the season when we start talking about matches and all the good stuff when we finally get rolling, whenever that may be. All right. So we have a lot to cover in this one. We had a bunch of things happen. I was going to post up on Thursday night, but I saw some things starting to roll and happen, so I wanted to see what happened throughout the day on Friday. We had a couple things happen on Friday, but for the last week, we've had a bunch of things happen. Some big news, signings, drops, all that kind of stuff that you expect this time of year. We thought some things would happen after the November 13th date. That was the other date on most of the contracts where they were expiring, so we had some things happen with that. First, let's start. We're going to dive into some signings. All right, so first I'm going to talk about this one first, just to continue on some of the conversation that I started last week with Dallas. So Dallas rounds out their roster with Eggsy. So like I said last week when I was railing on the Eternal, they got rid of FD God and all their other guys, and then Eggsy finally has left the building, and he is with Dallas, which is not really a surprise, doing the whole Element Mystic thing, and this makes their team top, it was already top 3, top 4. This makes it just one step better. Egsy's fantastic, great hit scan player. There probably aren't many teams in the league that would like to have gotten Eggsy, but Dallas had the money, had the way to, the means to sign him, along with all of the other guys. So he rounds out this team, and it's right now, barring anything weird that happens, I would go with them as they're a front runner. I wouldn't go with the top, but they're in that mix of teams that could win the championship next year. Honestly, this team looks great. I love what they did. They went all in, and they got a fantastic roster. Eggsy just finishes it off, and your DPS rotation right now is filthy before you get into bringing Eggsy in. So they bring him in, and it's just going to look like a totally different team, totally different attitude. I'd equate it a little bit, maybe a better start than the Dragons did in Season 2, where they just got rid of all that trash that they had from Season 1, minus the couple of good players that they had, and just rebuilt around that core of guys they had, and changed the outlook and the face and the way we think about the Dragons. Dallas is doing that this year. This is their turn, and right now, they look great. Enough on Dallas. We talked a lot about Dallas the last couple of weeks, and rightfully so. They're releasing information. They're telling us what's going on, and this was the last signing that they made, and, it just rounds out a fantastic roster. Let's move on to the next signing that we want to talk about. Now, there's a lot of guys that got signed, and I'm going to be brutally honest. Guys, I don't know a lot about contenders. I say this a lot. And I know a lot of the bigger teams, your Element Mystics, O2 Blast, Runaway. When we start getting into some of these teams that are signing guys from China, Chinese contenders, some of the Australian contenders and things like that, I have no idea what this brings to these guys and these teams. They could potentially be great. Obviously, to me, some of the moves seem very, very budget conscious, which a lot of teams are going to do that. Unfortunately, some of these guys that have gotten released in the last couple of weeks might be sitting on the sideline to start the season, because teams didn't make money this year. Let's be honest. And the good teams, some of them they don't have the cash, or they don't have the budget to do this because they don't know where the season's going, when it's going to start, and you can't make money until you start getting players, playing matches, and people like buying merch and that kind of stuff. That's how you start making your cash. It is what it is. So we're getting some weird signings from my standpoint, but expected because of just the current situation and things. All right, so first I want to talk about this really quick. Erster signed with the Shanghai Dragons. I think that's a good move. I do think that right now Erster kind of didn't have a great year last year. He's very similar to Fleta, but it's always good to have another guy like that around, I think. I mean, yeah, they're making some strange moves, the Dragons. You know, you're going, they're keeping their core, kind of. But, you know, they're bringing some guys in. They brought in Fate, got rid of Fearless. They brought in Erster after they got rid of Ding and Diem and Dia. So, I don't know. On paper, it's a good move. If you'd said it 2 years ago, you'd been like, wow, this is sick. But, you know, he didn't have a good last year in Atlanta. They had him playing wacky. He was wacky hero guy, you know, coming in, playing Mei on Anubis and things like that. And just... after, of course, the Mei meta kind of dwindled there, he wasn't even really playing a lot of Mei during that. There was just some kind of discord going on with him and the Reign. So I don't know if he's lost anything, which I don't think he has, but interesting signing by the Dragons. We'll see how it works out, and when they round out the rest of their roster, they're going to be good. I don't think that any team has really surpassed them quite yet. I'm looking at them to be good. I mean, potentially, depending on who Seoul picks up and what they're going to do, you could look at them maybe. That's what I see with the Dragons there. All right, let's move on. Next up, we have the Spark making some noise in the last couple of days. They signed MCD from Element Mystic. Flex support, really good. I've watched this dude play. He's good. I liked what I saw out of him. Bernard, who obviously was in the Overwatch League last year with the Spitfire off tank. I think he's above average. I don't think he's better than QOQ, but the word's out on that. I think he's someone you can work with, mold into what you need your flex tank to do. And I think it's a good pickup. I would have kept QOQ, but there was something not working right with that whole arrangement that they had going on there. But I think that's a decent pickup. They could have picked up worse. They could have picked up better. But I think he's going to fit the bill for what they need. He's going to be good. So they picked him up. They picked up MCD. And then they picked up Taiyaki. I'm sorry. I'm butchering his name. From Team Diamond. Don't know much about him. Going to be honest. Let's move on. They look like they're going a little bit mixed here and there with some Chinese players in there and things like that. I think they're trying to get a little bit more of that going on with their roster. And then today, Friday, I'm recording this on Friday, they signed former Titans DPS, Flex DPS player Xiaomin Su. So didn't see him at all last year, took the year off, or, you know, after the whole blow up of the Titans, nowhere to be found, but he's landed with the Spark. I think this is a great fit for them. I think he'll fit in great with Godsby and Architect. I think you're going to have a good trio of DPS guys here. I think they're building to be better. I don't think they're going to be great. I think they're going to be better than they were last year. I think they're going to get a little bit more chemistry than they had. It just didn't feel like they were doing well. There was a lot of miscommunication. You could see it when they played. A lot of things going wrong. Yeah, they signed Xiaomin Su, and they're looking pretty good. Are they they're probably mid-pack if we're running like Asia and NA together. I would say if they ran at the same teams as they did last year, somewhere below. It's hard to say because if they only have 5 teams and you have New York and London back in, I don't want to speculate anything on that quite yet. But it would be fun. I know I saw Sideshow on Plat Chat said, you know, let's rank the teams. Let's power rank the teams as they come out. I thought it was a fun idea. I mean, I could do that, you know, as they complete their roster, go, all right, I see them top 5 before the other teams. And then, like, you know, we'll move down the Spark, move up the, you know, whoever it is, the NYXL, because they filled in their roster with this, and this. When we're going to get to them in a second and what they did and the implications of that and the league and all that kind of stuff. But I thought it was fun. If he wants to come on this show and do it with me, I'm more than glad to do it. So, Sideshow, if you're listening, come on in. Let's do this weird power ranking thing. I'm all for it. I think it'd be fun. Let's talk now. Like I said, let's talk about the New York Excelsior. Okay. Here's my thoughts on this. This was the premier team in the Overwatch League when the Overwatch League started. Once that season 1 got rolling, they were the team to beat. They were the must-see squad. They had the guys that, you had the highlight guys, like you had Pine doing his thing. You had guys like Sabiobi going ham on Tracer, Jjonak doing ridiculous stuff on Zen. They were the team to watch. They were the team to beat. Ultimately, they did not win the championship, but they were the benchmark, the cool team to watch. And then they made it fun to watch a good team. And it brought eyes to the league too, because there were guys that were, with highlights and all that kind of stuff. It was a great core roster that they had there. They all got along. They fit New York to a T. They had that swag. They played a style that was a little different than everybody else. They played a reactionary style, which worked in season 1. They made you pay for your mistakes, defensive. And New York always is into the tough defensive teams that throughout history that got grit and will punish you in many different ways. It's like it fit everything about the name, the brand, all that kind of stuff. They were great. Season 2, they fell off a little bit. Goats, all that kind of stuff. And then this year, they just were not the same. And we've had some guys moving in and out by this point, but they finally have blown up that whole team from season 1. The only remaining person now that signed a contract is Jjonak, because they have released Animo, Libero, and Sabiobi. Now, I could spend hours talking about Sabiobi as a person, as a leader, as a great player. This guy still is one of the top tracers in the league. He even played a decent enough Sombra at times, decent enough Reaper, but his presence is what made him great. And he still is. He's still looking for a team. He still wants to play. It'll be weird. I will not lie. I can deal with seeing other guys on other teams, but he was kind of the face of the franchise, the captain. Seeing the captain of that NYXL team on a different team is going to be odd to me. I don't know if he's done, if he wants to move on, but he said he's LFT, so I think he's still got some in the tank. I think someone could pick him up. I think they could use him, and I think he would do well. And he could be a coach. He could be, in management, that kind of thing. He's a great dude. Epitomizes what you want a professional to be. And I love that guy. I'm going to miss him on New York, seeing him play for New York. Now, I'm going to talk about the other guys, obviously, because, he was the big guy I want to talk about a little bit. Animo, I think, is a serviceable, above average main support. It was time for some of these guys to move on. I think he would do well on another team. I think he can fit in a few different systems, do decently enough. Is he the top of the league? No, he's not. But you know what? He's better than a lot of guys that were playing last year and are probably going to be playing this year on some of these teams that are going budget and things like that. He is a good main support. Now, the guy I think with the most value that got released is Libero. Libero is a great player. I know everyone, podcasters, he's the jack of all trades, master of none, but he's pretty damn good at everything. He's not the best Pharah, but he's got a really good Pharah. He's not the best Reaper, but he's got a really good Reaper. He's that guy. His Genji's serviceable. He plays well out there. I just like having a guy like that. His Mei he's the original Mei player, the best Mei player. I think a lot of teams could use someone like him just for his versatility factor. When you get into metas, you get into things where you need a couple of different, maybe 2 projectiles, an extra hit scan. He can play hit scans okay. He's not that great on them, but he can pick up things too. And when you get into a situation where you're going to have this new game drop, possibly with 6 new heroes, 5 new heroes, whatever, he's a guy that you want on your team because he's going to be able to learn some of these things and do some of these things faster than other guys because he just picks up on it really quick. And it's like having, if you're a baseball fan, it's like having a really high quality utility infielder, a guy who can play all different positions and is valuable. And, if he was a utility infielder guy in the majors, he would be a guy that hits like 270, hits you 25 home runs, maybe gets you 70 RBIs, but good in clutch situations. And overall play is not bad, but he can play good. He plays well at every position he's going to be sitting on. end of an era in New York. They're going to move on. I think that they're not going to screw the fans. They're not going to go the Paris route. They're not going to budget it. They're not going to Boston it, especially with what they have built over the last 3 years. I think, and I had said this, maybe it's time for these guys to reset, to go in a different direction. It still sucks when you see it happen. I love watching this team play. They weren't my favorite team. I just liked watching them play. I had no rooting interest. I know a lot of people do. I mean, obviously, biggest city in the league. Well, biggest North American city in the league. So the fan base is pretty big. But guys, I wouldn't be worried too much about what happens with your team if you're a New York Excelsior fan. You still have Jjonak, and they're going to go out and get a bunch of quality guys. And if I'm wrong, I don't know what to think of what's going to happen in the league from here on out. I really don't. I think they're going to build a good team, and we'll see what happens in the next week or two or however long it takes them to build this thing, but I think they're going to build up something good. Let's talk about another team that decided to do a mass dumping. And a lot of these guys that have been dumped were on that November 13th thing. So the Hunters, being the weird that they are, they they moved a bunch of guys to their academy team, the Chasers. So Kiyu, Langsa, and Yevtol and Late Young are all going to be on the Chasers, Yevtol being a two-way, and Late Young. So I think they want to go in a different direction, and Ameng, I'm assuming, is going to be signed and on the roster from what it feels like. I haven't seen any news on him. So they have moved these guys to an academy team, and they've signed some players too. They signed Kaneki and Jimmy, who I know nothing about, except for I really want Jimmy and Jerry as a backline. It would be dumb just to have that. Jimmy and Jerry. It's like you're yelling for third graders at recess. So I have this feeling, and I'm calling it this. I think they want to move away from that wacky. They don't want to be wacky Chengdu. They don't want to be the clowns at the circus anymore. They want to build a proper team. But I feel like it's like when you're trying to quit smoking and you have that pack of cigarettes in just in case I feel that urge and I can't control it. I got something. I'll have a cigarette or whatever. I feel like that's what they're doing with the Chasers roster right now, with Kiyu, Langsa, Yevtol, and Late Young all there. If this roster that they're trying to build, which seems to be mostly Chinese, which is fine. There's a lot of good Chinese players out there. I just don't know who they are. And I've heard a lot of good things about Chinese contenders. What I'm getting at is they got these guys backing the other team up. So if it goes sideways with these guys as they pick up, they can bring all of these guys from the Chasers and just go back to wacky Chengdu style. I think that's really what they're trying to do here with putting them all on there, which is kind of what you use a minor league, a tier 2 thing in other sports for. You have it for, guys, if, this guy's not playing good, we got this guy, we'll bring him up. Like in mostly hockey and in baseball, you're going to do that. Football and basketball don't have that. I guess you could consider D-League that for basketball, but you're not seeing too many D-League guys getting pulled up in the middle of the season because a point guard, has a horrible amount of assists and his shooting percentage is terrible. They're generally going out looking for free agents or making trades or bringing a guy off the bench. But I think that they're kind of doing almost like having a bench, but they get constant play time, which is not a bad idea, which goes back to what I was saying, actually what a farm team is. You want your bench guys to be the less experienced guys, maybe a couple of guys that have more experience that you bring in situations, but it's weird. It's Chengdu, so it actually makes sense because it's weird, and I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what they did with that. Okay, so the moves keep coming, guys. We're just going to keep going with this. The Defiant picked up a couple of players. They picked up Sunajay from Element Mystic, and they picked up Aztac from Uprising Academy. I've heard Aztac is good, and I've heard the same about Sunajay. I'm pronouncing his name wrong, so bear with me. But I heard these guys are good. I think it seems to be a mix of some budget players, because they have signed, they signed Beast and they've signed these guys. They signed Logix, who's I'm sure he's not a cheap DPS player. He's really good. So, and a presence from the team last year along with Beast. Obviously going mixed, and we'll see what they do with the rest of these guys. Could be bench roll guys. I don't know yet. But, yeah, that's what I see, what they did there. Now, the Dynasty, well, this is the last batch we're going to talk about for Friday. I have not gone on Twitter in the last hour. It is like 6 o'clock at night, Eastern Standard Time. So this is where we're at as far as I'm looking at the transaction log on Reddit, just to make sure nothing's happened in the last 5 minutes. But this is where I'm standing, leaving it, whatever you want to call it. In an odd move, maybe not odd, somewhat expected move by the Dynasty with the guys that are out there and the cash and the... people want to play for the Dynasty, especially if we have to do a thing where they're playing. Might want to play from home or close to home. That's why some of these teams, in China are going to pick some guys up, and they've released Illicit and Michelle. Michelle, okay. Illicit didn't really see much. Seemed okay when I saw him. There were guys that they don't need right now, so I would look for them to definitely sign a flex tank, and they could sign somebody like Libro, even though he shares a hero pool with Prophet. He would be a good combo with Prophet if you want to run Tracer, you want to run Genji. You have that situation, or if you're running something where you have to run a Mei, you can put Prophet on something else. And then you also have Fitz, too, for your long-range hit scans and all that kind of thing. So I think something like that would be a good move. Fury's out there. He could reunite with the guys. We were talking about that last week. You have Fury. You have Meko. You have a bunch of guys that are out there that they could possibly sign. The possibilities are endless. I mean, a lot of these guys can end up on a lot of different teams. There's things I want to dive into more of, where this guy would go. Like I said, those Illicit and Michelle, they could end up on one of these teams that's doing budget. They're above average players. They could do well in certain situations and help a team out. Especially if you don't want to spend a ton of money, but you want somebody with experience in the league. These guys have been all the way to the final, so they understand the pressure and all that kind of stuff. So those two guys might not be bad guys to pick up. You could see Illicit end up on a team like Florida, or even a team like Toronto. Same thing with Michelle. I mean, those could be landing spots for these guys. Even some of the Chinese teams, you could see one of them ending up in Guangzhou or Hangzhou. That's a possibility. As far as some of the other guys, that we were just talking about released, I would love to say I could see Sabiobi on certain teams. Maybe Philadelphia would be a situation where I could see Sabiobi do really well. Or, this is going to sound odd, I know they have a lot of players right now, but the Gladiators, he could be a nice fit there just as a veteran presence, a guy who can speak some English. He's a good leader. You could get him in there. I think that would be a nice place for him too. Same thing on Philadelphia. Great player. He can fit some of the needs that they have. You don't have to put Carpe on Tracer. You can have him do the Tracer duty stuff and Carpe do other things, like especially if you run into a meta where you're doing, Tracer Widow or something like that. And you can complement what Carpe can do with Sabiobi and Sabiobi's leadership on top of it. I think that could be a good fit for them. I think he would do well on a mixed roster team. I would love to see it. I mean, he could end up in Florida. I don't think they could use his leadership. I don't know if they need his skill set though. That's my one worry with that there. But there's a few teams that he could end up on, or he could retire and become a coach, dive into that. There's always teams looking for coaches and stuff like that, and he would be a great guy to do that. But I just wanted to do a little bit of where they could end up, possibly kind of thing going on with some of these guys. I love talking that stuff. Saying, hey, this guy could fit great here. Animo, another guy. There's a lot of guys looking for main supports. He could fit in a myriad of places. I'm a big Libero fan. I wanted Ivy on my team, but who knows what's going to happen with him. They're saying he might go to New York. If I couldn't get Ivy, I would want to get Libero. I want that flex guy to play alongside of Yaki. I want BQB back is the other thing too. So for me, as a Mayhem fan, just to talk about them for a minute, because I have to every show, because that's what I do. And if you don't like it, I'm sorry. Not really. But if you have BQB Yaki Libero or BQB Yaki Ivy, that's a great core. Because I see teams are running trimmer rosters. You don't want to pay 12. Even the Shock, who have been thriving on having a lot of players, they're cutting back. They don't have the budgets for this stuff. So having a guy like Libero or Ivy that can play a fuck ton of heroes at a decent enough level, and then you have your main two on there like BQB and Yaki, you got everything covered, and I think it would be great. Either one of those guys in the pink and blue would be fantastic. But that's going to do it, guys. I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this one. Thank you very much for everybody out there on YouTube. Thanks for all the likes, subscribes, all the support. Everybody that's new, thank you for stopping by. Please hit a subscribe. Hit the like button, the bell, all that kind of jazz. I'm going to try and get something out to you guys in the early part of next week, hopefully. I work in the grocery business. This is the absolute most insanest week of the year. In a normal year, not in a year where I got to wear a mask and there's all kinds of crazy regulations and all kinds of crap we have to do with COVID. Thanksgiving week in America is huge in the grocery business. So I'm going to be really busy and working my real-time job, quite a bit this week. So I'm going to try and get something done. If something happens, which I'm thinking we're going to start to see a lot more signings before going into the holidays and things like that in America. I know a lot of the Asian teams are already like getting their stuff pretty much set, but I think some of the American teams are going to start doing that before they can get into the holidays, and teams can be with the people on the teams can be with their families and all that kind of thing. The ones that celebrate all the American holidays, I'm getting into weird shit. Anyway, this is Misfit. I'm out. Everybody out there, thank you very much. Stay safe. Have a good rest of your day, and I will talk to you on the next one.